2 months ago, I made a very bold prediction about the real estate market, and that was driven mostly because I was getting a little bit tired of people being super negative about this market and just things in general. And here we are now. I'm going to hold myself accountable to you, those of you that watch and support this channel with your views, comments, and those of you who actually email me. And I'm going to show you whether or not I was right or wrong. And then you're going to understand a little bit about how I think about the real estate market and how I remove emotion from what I think is going to happen in the future, because I think emotion and getting married to some sort of a narrative, whether too positive or too negative, does no good to anyone. In fact, it creates a lot of confusion. Now, without further ado, here's what drove this. I made this poll, and it was 2 months ago. Effectively, I said that for the last 16 years, February and March, prices always go up. Without a doubt, there was only one exception, that was COVID. But otherwise, these are some of your strongest price growth months in GTA, and the data supports it. So I asked, will 2024 be different? And here you have the results. 55% basically thought that, you know what, no, prices are going to go down despite the data. So they ignore everything that's happened in the past. 2024 is going to be so bad, it's going to crash and burn. And then 45% said, no, it will probably be the same as the past. So let's get right into it. Here is the tweet. So for the record, median prices over the next 2 months will go up. This was February 7th. Before getting into the actual numbers, I do want to highlight one thing that is somewhat material, and when we're comparing March 2024 versus March of 2023. Long weekend, Easter long weekend fell in March in 2024, and last year it was actually in April. So when you're comparing year over year, this March is going to look worse than it did last year, and that's because we had 3 days of effectively slow transactions or slow activity. Something to keep in mind, it's not the biggest change obviously, but something I feel we need to highlight. Treb here did a great job highlighting it as the first thing in the report. Without further ado, let's cut through all the noise and let's actually look at what's happening. I said that in February and in March of 2024, prices are going to go up in both months, and they did. Now, here's the thing. In March, the price increase wasn't as substantial as we typically see. Usually we see 2%. We saw about a quarter of that. Nonetheless, prices did go up. They also went up in February. So here I am, a genius. No, I'm kidding. Far from it, but common sense, right? Common sense. Remove emotion from all of this stuff. Look at all the relevant variables, and you can kind of see where things are going. Now, if you're to ask me what's going to happen over the next 2 to 3 months, this is a completely different question. And I'm going to show you what is happening, the divergence that's happening in different variables, and why I think we might have actually hit our price ceiling for this year. Obviously, it's a little bit too early to tell, but I'll show you some of the early warning signs that we're getting in this market. This is GTA overall. So this chart trends seasonal norms, GTA, all property types, condos, detached, semis, townhouses, everything. If I was to break this down, so for example, right now I have clients buying, selling condos. I have clients selling, listing in Richmond Hill, Unionville, Markham, some in Durham. And guess what's happening? Every single area is going to be a little bit different. So this is general trend, but this is not the trend for where you live. So where you live, for example, may be different. If you're in Markham, prices have actually been trending a little bit down on the detached, relatively good, staying somewhat flat. They're transacting, so things are moving, but prices are not creeping up. Condos, similar story. In fact, a lot of people used to see or say that condos, prices are going down. In fact, they've kind of stayed somewhat flat, and I'm seeing that on the ground floor. You can get deals on certain properties, but not every property. As always, the good stuff generally moves pretty quick, and it's not like you're out there stealing units or properties for like 10% below market value. Another area that's doing pretty good is Durham. That's been the darling of COVID in a way, and it still is a sought-after area because, once again, the price point of detached homes there is lower. So you have a lot of demand from first-time home buyers and young families looking to upsize. So in general, your area is going to be very different, but seasonally, this is what's happening in the GTA right now. We had tremendous growth in February, that flatlined in March, and what's going to happen over the next few months, I don't know. I still suspect prices in general will creep up for the GTA, but it's going to be really dependent on which price point, what property type, where you are. Now, this graph right here is probably the most important graph for this month, and I feel this is what's showing that we might have a little bit of wonkiness, or maybe we're seeing a little bit of cracks in the market right now going into the future months. So the red line right here is the seasonal new listings that we get month over month, and then the green line is the absorption, or how many transactions actually happen. Here's where the issue starts, or at least where it's starting right now in March. And if it continues for another month, I think things would get interesting. So typically in March, in a normal year, we'll sell 8,500 properties. This year, we sold 6,500. And this divergence is pretty material because something similar started happening last year. And then you'll see exactly what happened when I show you in the following graph. Now, on the new listings, though, the one thing that's maybe the saving grace, we're seeing less new listings than what we typically see. So there are less homes coming on the market, this spring market, as of right now, which is kind of offsetting the fact that we're selling less. So less new listings, less sales in total kind of makes sense. But the fact that the trend here is diverging so early is a sign that potentially we might have a few wild months coming up. Now, I always like providing context because looking at anything in absolute terms is going to be very misleading. So here's 2023. The red line is 2023 new listings. What you'll see last year, after March going into April, we actually had a reduction in new listings coming on the market. We were supposed to have 17,200 listings in April. We actually had 11,000 new listings. What that drove is a substantial increase in the amount of transactions that were actually happening because there was this fear of missing out, or FOMO, where buyers thought, oh my God, there's no inventory. What are we going to do? And then they started buying. And that kind of went in until May. And that's where things completely came to a grinding halt. Inventory started increasing substantially faster. And as you see, when inventory starts increasing or outpacing seasonal norms and outpacing the amount of absorption we have more and more buyers starting to take a seat, and they're waiting then to see, well, you know what, if more inventory is coming, there's going to be more price pressure, we're going to have more options, so on and so forth. And as you will see, inventory peaked in June of 2023, and then the divergence started happening in the amount of transactions that we're actually absorbing. So in other words, what's happening right here, this divergence is reminding me very much of where we are right now in March. However, things right now in general are a lot more stable, and we have somewhat of a line of sight in terms of mortgage rates. So as an example, September and October of 2023, I renewed one of my mortgages and I did a 3-year fixed. I believe I even made a YouTube video on it, and I got a rate of 5.99. That exact same mortgage 6 to 7 months later, which is right now, I have clients getting the exact same mortgage at 5.19 to 5.09. So the exact same mortgage that I took 6 to 7 months ago is now almost 1% less. So that means purchasing power has improved. We know there are going to be no more rate hikes. The only question mark is really when the rate cuts are going to happen. That I'm not holding my breath on. And likely they're going to start later than they're supposed to, and that's going to have some carnage through the economy. But anyway, that's for another video. This divergence here is of concern in 2024, and ultimately the only thing that will save the market, this spring market in particular, is if listings stay flat. So meaning we don't see as many listings as we're supposed to see in April and May. That will save the market from topping out. However, if listings continue to creep up next month, I do assume that we're going to see the exact same thing play out as last year, where buyers are going to kind of sit back and they're going to wait for this quote unquote flood of inventory and then see if they can get better deals. And at that point, it's going to be a question of whether or not the sellers have the staying power to just put off their sale and wait for the fall market. Last and certainly not least is the importance of the active listings seasonal trend, yellow line, versus 2024 actuals. As you will see, we're roughly 21% below where active listings should be right now. So as an example, seasonally, we should be seeing about 15,700 active listings on the market. And for March of this year, we saw about 12,500. That means we don't have as much inventory as we're supposed to. And this is what's kind of helping prop up prices where they are right now, which is still relatively high. I think it's important to highlight this number because if you only look over the last, 5 years or during COVID, this number of 12,500 may actually look high, but generally people forget that over the last 16 years, seasonally active inventory at this time of the year is actually much higher than what we're seeing today. And that covers it for this video. So I think a lot of uncertainty going in the next few months. I do believe we're going to have one more month of seasonal norms, meaning prices still should creep up. The only way I see it not happening is if we have this massive spike in inventory. Time will tell. I do want to say one thing in this video. I want to appreciate everybody that watches these videos, that comments or emails me or even calls me. This is what kind of keeps this thing going, because I've actually pulled back on making YouTube videos and just social media content in general. It's very time consuming, and you know what? A lot of times it gets consumed, but you don't know if it's actually making a difference. So the one interesting thing is last month I had 2 people actually come up to me and tell me, just unsolicited, they watched my content. So I found that really kind of re-inspired me. I don't think I'm going to continue making much more. I'm going to try to stick with the basics here of things I enjoy making. But I did want to say I appreciate all of you watching. Thank you so much. And if you like this video, you found it helpful, like, subscribe, share it, and feel free to email me or text me if you have any questions about your area. And I will see you most likely next month when we cover this data again. Have a good one.